Hi, today is June 28th. It's 3 p.m. and we're here for the Public Works Finance Committee meeting. We have here today with us, we have Gina Teresio and we have Sandra Kelly, as well as a series of staff people. And we have 5 things on our agenda, and we're going to plow right through those. The very first one is approval of the June 14th, 2021 Public Works Finance Committee minutes. And are there any questions, concerns?
They look good.
As ever, Taylor, great job. Okay, approved by us.
Yes.
Sanitation rate study proposal, Tim Davis.
Hi, Tim.
Good afternoon. Staff has initiated discussions with FCS Group of Redmond, Washington to develop a scope of work to perform a cost of service rate study update for the sanitation department. Using the same methodologies and policies established with the 2012 and 2016 rate studies. FCS Group will evaluate the sanitation system as a whole, as well as standalone evaluations of the collection system and the solid waste processing and disposal systems. The City of Moscow also has agreements, disposal agreements with Latah County, as well as the cities of Beauville, Deary, Genesee, Julietta, Kendrick, Potlatch, and Troy, which will expire at the end of 2023. This study will provide the framework to begin negotiations for extensions of those disposal agreements. The study will also allow the city to recalibrate sanitation rates as we begin to build historical data from some of our newer programs, such as the roll cart collection program and single stream recycling programs. This rate study update format will look familiar to past rate studies, as staff will engage a citizen rate committee made up of different customer classes to review the process and findings. FCS Group will also facilitate presentations to both the committee and city council on study assumptions, methodology, results, and recommendations. The estimated budget from FCS Group to perform the rate study is $42,485, and staff has requested that work be completed by November 1st of 2021. Before you today for your consideration is a professional services agreement with FCS Group to perform the sanitation cost of service rate study update. With that, I would take any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
Tim, I'll start with you, and then if Gary needs to jump in. I just had a question. Will you refresh my memory about what the list of communities, what kind of agreements were you talking about there?
They are disposal agreements. And basically the way it works is all those separate communities have individual agreements with Latah Sanitation to do their actual collection. Once it hits the transfer station, that's where the disposal portion comes in, and they're contracted directly with us since we're in charge of the long haul and ultimate disposal.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
My only other question on this would be, amazingly enough, I don't remember what the normal budget for this is. Is this pretty standard?
I believe the last rate study we did in 2016 was right around $20,000, but it was done pretty close thereafter where we finished our first comprehensive rate study. And I believe the first one we did, we included it with sewer and water and sanitation. We did it all at the same time, and I don't recall what that was. I'm thinking it was in the $90,000 range.
I want to say that was 2013, if I recall correctly. So when we did the comprehensive sanitation study, then the next step was to go ahead and move forward with the rates. Mm-hmm. You'll recall that we negotiated the long-term contract with LSI, extending out to 2035, as well as with, it's not Idaho Waste Systems, who is it? The long-haul contractor.
Finley Buttes.
Finley Buttes. So when we did those both, so they coincided, and for the long term, then we pushed up the rate study to do it in 2016.
Okay.
As you recall, we just did water and sewer rate studies, completing those in 2020. So this is just a scheduled time.
Okay.
So the price looks pretty much comparable with what we've spent in the past.
Yeah, and FCS has been, they've performed all of the rate studies for both water, sewer, and sanitation. And they're very good. Angie does a great job. Sergey is a great modeler.
Yeah.
They take the comprehensive plan, the master planning, apply it, look at where you're going to be, what you need to keep up with pricing and that sort of thing. And they've done an outstanding job
Great.
so far.
It'll be interesting to see some of the impacts too of the roll carts and the single stream. That'll be fun.
We implemented the roll carts just shortly after we completed that first comprehensive plan, and then the single stream recycling just before we did the second update. So now we're building a little bit of history, and we'll see how close
Yeah.
we actually are. But I feel like we'll be reasonably close.
Good. That's great.
Can we, any objection?
Not at all.
We put this on the consent agenda?
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're starting
Thanks,
the
Tim.
Gary Reedner Dog and Pony Show here. And so we're moving to the amendment to joint operating agreement for the Pullman Moscow Regional Airport.
Thank you. What you have before you is a very insignificant amendment from a legal standpoint. However,
No such thing.
That's exactly
Right,
right.
Mia.
we thought it was insignificant, but in 2014, when the FAA was proposing or had preliminarily approved the grants for the runway rehabilitation at the Pullman Moscow Regional Airport, they looked at our current agreement with the city of Pullman, joint operating agreement, and indicated that there were some deficiencies with it. Essentially, that cities of Pullman and Moscow were the main sponsors for the airport. In other words, we were the ones who were going to be signing the grant agreements. And they said the way the airport board was set up, and I'm just picking pieces out of it now, the more significant pieces, they said the way that the airport board members were appointed needed to be changed. They needed to be put in at the discretion of the sponsors, not in the pay-to-play concept that, okay, well, we'll participate $20,000, we want a seat on the board, which is typically how it's done in a lot of places. So we revised the agreement then, and the most significant change to the agreement, other than the way the board was appointed, was that the city of Moscow wanted to have the ability to own half of the airport as tenants in common with the city of Pullman. That wasn't a problem at all. FAA thought that was a good idea as well. Well, we went through, negotiated the agreement. It was adopted by the city of Pullman, city of Moscow, sent to FAA, and we've been operating ever since on that. However, unbeknownst to us, I shouldn't say unbeknownst to us, as an oversight, Idaho Code 672329 says that if you have an agreement between two public entities existing in different states, you need to send that agreement to the Secretary of State, who will then forward it to the Attorney General. The Attorney General then has 30 days to respond, saying, okay, this looks good. If they don't respond, then it's presumed statutorily that it's approved. That was not done for some reason. So as we were moving forward in our typical review of stuff, Mia picked up that it had not been sent out. We retained a couple of attorneys to take a look at the agreement with the airport on the ownership issue. And they indicated, well, you need to make sure that this has been done now with the Secretary of State. So we looked at it. It had not been done. Secretary of State had not seen it before. So Mia immediately transmitted it to the Secretary of State, sent it on to the Attorney General. Essentially, the Attorney General said, well, it's been in place a long time. Looks like it's enforceable. So, and then going back, looking at it, said it is deficient in one thing, and that is that there is not a stated duration of the agreement. Now, the agreement, as it says, as I said, from a legal significance standpoint, it may not comply with the statutory mandate, but it says that essentially you have a means of terminating the agreement, but doesn't say there is a set duration. So in order to meet the statutory mandate, the proposal is just to insert the term perpetuity, that the agreement's in perpetuity until it is terminated by one of the parties. That was the intent when we adopted the agreement back in 2014. So that is the proposal. I also contacted Tony Bean, the executive director of the airport. Didn't see any problem with it at all. I talked to Karen Miles, the regional administrator or regional representative of the FAA in their Seattle office. She didn't think that would be a problem at all, so I've got an email drafted to send over to Mike Urban, the Pullman City Administrator, so they can take a look at it as well. But as you can see, the amendment is extremely minor, but it helps us accomplish our goal.
We like to come within the law. I totally approve it. Anybody objections?
No, I don't have any objections, but, so this is not a surprise to Pullman though, right?
No, I've talked to Mike previously to this,
Okay,
and Adam Lincoln, who was the Pullman City Administrator
Right.
before that.
okay. Because it doesn't sound horrible until it says in perpetuity or at the end of each year as, so
Sure.
I hear you. But, good, okay, then I think it's good. I think
Yep.
Consent agenda? Consent agenda.
see,
Thank you.
And for the second time, second show,
Oh, yeah.
the sale of the current police station to the University of Idaho.
Okay. Thank you. Tony Broyles from the University of Idaho is here, so if we could have her come to the
Tony.
Hey.
table,
Tony.
I'll introduce, there's that letter I indicated that I had. Okay, this is a situation, you'll recall that when the community passed the general obligation bond in 2019 to both construct a new police station, renovate the current 4th Street facility for an estimated price of about $1.55 million, and also to do some fairly minor remodeling to the man building for the total $9.64 million bond issue. So we moved along. The first stage, of course, was building the police station. That's going on right now. So we were approached probably a little over a year ago that the Haddock building down just across Jackson Street from the Moscow Food Co-op was available for sale. Gritman Medical Park LLC agreed to sell that to the city for the price of $875,000. We looked at it that time. Council made the decision to move forward with it. It's a 1985 construction, modern structure, better lighting, those sorts of things. Off-street parking, which for a city facility, as you know, in the downtown area is always a big issue. So council elected to move forward with that. The idea was to take those services, community planning and design services, community development, building safety services, engineering, and grants, and move them. They were going to go to the 4th Street facility. Now they will go to the Haddock building. So essentially, the 4th Street facility becomes surplus. At the time that the council authorized the staff to move forward with the purchase of the Haddock building, they also indicated that they wanted to look into the potential of selling the 4th Street facility. So pursuant to that, not too long after that, we were approached by the University of Idaho indicating that they were in the market for a building and wanted to start discussions. We retained an appraiser to get an appraisal on the building. The appraisal came out to $975,000. Conveyed that to the University of Idaho, and the University of Idaho, as you saw in the packet, they have a letter of intent that they would like to purchase it from the city. I'll let Tony take it from here as soon as I lay out the process. So the process is that if the council wants to convey or exchange a piece of property to, well, if they want to sell it essentially, then they need to set a purchase price for the property. Then they need to set a public hearing. They have to indicate they want to sell it, determine what purchase price they want for it, then set a public hearing. And no less than 14 days prior to that, or after that, you have a public hearing where essentially the council says this is what we're doing, so they would move forward. If that conveyance is to another tax-supported public entity, which the University of Idaho meets that statutory definition, then the council can do so without auctioning the property. So it's a fairly simple process. Council did this with the piece of property upon which the what is it? Low to moderate income housing on White Avenue where the old animal shelter was years ago. We did that to the Idaho Housing Finance Agency. So it's not a process that is foreign to us. So with that, I will turn it
Can I
over
ask
to
you a
Tony.
quick question on that,
Certainly.
though? And that question is that, was there discussion about us keeping a police presence? I mean, one of the things that we've been receiving emails on is, it would be nice if we kept police presence and downtown. Was that ever discussed or in the advertising or something like that I missed
It was
somewhere?
discussed exhaustively.
Uh-huh.
We had wanted to keep the police station as close to downtown as we could. There's obviously no big lots that are available to do that. You'll recall that we looked at the old federal building, which is also owned by Gritman Medical Park, to see if we could purchase that building and put the police station there. That didn't bear any fruit. Gritman decided they didn't want to sell it. But we talked about maybe having a satellite facility or something like that. In the end analysis, it was determined that even where the police station is now is not very far from downtown. Very seldom are the officers physically in the station. They're mostly on patrol, especially bike officers, community policing. They're downtown. That's University of Idaho campus, and downtown is where most of that activity goes on. So it was determined at that time that having that facility where it is now on South Main would still meet that. So I know for myself, I would have preferred to have something closer to downtown, but it's just the way it is. There are no pieces of property of that size. So we don't see any loss of safety because of that.
Do we ever have a discussion about keeping part of the police station as a place that we would keep a handful of officers?
No, there are staffing issues.
Right.
Once you do that, you'll see it in big cities, you'll see little precincts that may just be an office presence, a storefront presence, but those are typically manned, staffed all day, if not 24 hours a day. So with the fairly lean police force that we have, staffing an additional facility, the cost would go way up. We already provide pursuant to contract police services with the University of Idaho, so we have a constant police presence up there, and that we have a captain and 2 patrol officers who are present on campus all the time.
Will you talk about the conditional use permit and the educational institutions in the Central Business District?
That was a question that we talked about early on, and the University of Idaho indicated, and you probably saw President Green's press release last week, indicating that the intent of the use is to use it for the Pritchard Art Gallery, a new location for the Pritchard Art Gallery. Community Development indicates that art galleries are a use of right in the Central Business District, and it exists there now. The U of I has been advised and shown them the code as what you can use it for, and maybe Tony can address that. But that discussion was aired out early on in the discussions.
I think that would be a good clarification to keep
I
in the
want to make
front
a
of-
clarification that ownership by an educational institution, zoning is about use, it's not about ownership.
Indeed.
So we don't see any issue with the proposed use that the U of I has indicated they want to use it for.
Tony?
No, I'll just speak briefly to use. So we've really enjoyed a stay at our current location where the Pritchard is. But the university's been working hard over the last 2 years on our fiscal health. And we are currently in a leasing situation. And so looking for an opportunity to buy, so we are paying ourselves instead of leasing, especially at this price point. And one of the things, I'm not sure if Gary mentioned, but you agree to the fair market appraised value. So there is no discount, but there is no markup. It is a fair market value, and the university does feel the appraisal was accurate and is a fair market value. And so the primary use is a new home for Pritchard where we are owning, and so we did share that in the press release. We also will be using a portion of the space for retail, so working at some more revenue generating opportunities for the institution. we've enjoyed our stay at the current home, but we think with the 9,000 square feet, we can do more as far as additional gallery work and things, and while still having a retail presence and really using that storefront on Highway 95. I think it's no secret, our state has seen an influx of people from out of state, and not only do they not know who University of Idaho is, they really don't know the higher ed institutions in the state. And so while Main Street is very appealing for our local constituents, having a presence on Highway 95, the main thoroughfare, going through the northern part of the state is a prime opportunity for the university from that point of view. And to what Gary mentioned about, there's only so many spaces, large spaces available, and it is important to the university that we maintain a downtown presence with our community. And the police station is one of very few available buildings with that large of square footage for us to do a full-scale art gallery and still have some retail. And so we got our fiscal health house in order at a time when this project is progressing, and so it's a way for us to stay invested in the community. And we do feel like with the arena coming online this fall, we do advocate for performing arts and fine arts in our community. And building the arena is not only for basketball. We are going to have several different types of concerts and artists and comedians and art shows and food festivals, and we want to do things in there that are complementary to the downtown community. And having a world-class art gallery and a place where we can also showcase the art of our citizens and our faculty and our students, to us is just a nice complement to the musical and performing component that will really be coming online this fall. As our press release mentioned, it's sooner the police can get out of there, we can get in there and do just a little remodeling. I have to tell you, the space, being a police station, does cross over very nicely. There is a vault.
Arrest those students? What do we?
Yeah, the vault used for evidence, we can now store fine art in between showings. There's a robust IT closet. There is a front reception. Whether you wanted to be there before, now we hope you want to be there. And so there's a lot of working components to functionally of how it was laid out that really does help make it work for the university nicely. And I will just mention, and this is just extra information, but we really do want to maintain the integrity of the downtown and that building. And so part of when the city did take a look at evaluating that space for a remodel or what is the best choice was things like removing the 70s concrete from the outside and restoring the brick and things like that. And the university is going to actively pursue those kind of things as well, so that it really does look and feel like a part of downtown Moscow. So
If I follow up on one of your statements, is the art going to be predominantly students and faculty and regional, or?
it'll, we want to as a land-grant institution, we really want to bring in different types of art. And so some will be our students, because we do have fine arts program. We have an outstanding MFA program. And we have faculty, but it's regional galleries we want to partner with that we haven't done before, that increase the partnership with our local art community here, statewide. The Pritchard thus far has brought in some amazing installations. That's still on the list to do, and that won't stop. But you may see a little more variety of types of art and where that originates, and partnerships with galleries. So hopefully bringing some different types of art and different interests for people that maybe haven't always been wanting to go into the Pritchard, but now with the new location and maybe of interest. And then Of course, I think one of the things we do benefit from the highway going through the community is what is a sample, what is a selection? So if someone sees something and they can only stop quickly, what do we have to offer? So when I say retail, university stuff, would love to have some City of Moscow stuff, State of Idaho stuff in there. So we are helping tourism in a mass appeal for people that stop in, that maybe art is what got them to stop in, but they learn a little bit more about our community in the process.
How long do you think the renovation would take so you can open up and actually have a gallery going?
Well, we are in the process of looking at the renovation costs. I appreciate the city handing over the file from their previous research. And so the sooner we can get going on that and looking at contract and labor, it is actually nice, the city, for the fall timeline for maybe the city to move out, as prices are typically more friendly in the winter months. So I think actually the timing could work out for us. You know, the plan is to mostly demo in the space and actually keep the, remove the drop ceilings and you know, so think industrial shabby chic. But you know, a lot of that industrial art gallery feel. And then as we mentioned, you know, long term, continue to improve the gallery, and we'll do fundraising and other things. And so how we open it and so it's functional and here for the community is one way, and then it'll be a continuous improvement from that.
Thank you.
We have drinks like they do at the Vandal store on campus, like coffee. Do we have Starbucks or somebody coming in? If I could just ask you a secret on that one, it's not a secret.
Well, we will like to have any of our, so the Alumni Association does have a wine association, Vandals Uncorked. We do have royalty agreements with businesses in our downtown community, and those would be some of the products we would prioritize, is supporting our downtown community businesses that are partnering with us. An example of that could be the Vandal Red Wine at Coulter Creek, as an example where we have a partnership with a local business.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Okay, so the next move is if the committee wants to move forward, we will go ahead, bring it to council on the 6th. We'll publish public notice as soon as we can meet the statutory notice requirement. We'll put it for public hearing. And if the council approves it at that time, we'll negotiate a purchase and sale agreement with the contingency that the police have to be out before they start tearing it up. But with that, we can get that done after the council considers it.
Thank you. It sounds like a great addition to downtown.
Agreed.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll let you know when that hearing is.
All right.
No, that's yours.
That's fine.
It's got the mayor's signature on
Oh,
it.
okay. I'll try not to lose it.
Okay,
Pull that up. You know.
we can get you another copy.
Okay, thank you.
I think we can actually forward it to council with the unanimous support of the council.
Sure.
Of the
Yeah.
commission. Yes,
Perfect.
great.
Thank you.
Okay. Last but not least,
Okay. Well,
parks staffing proposal. Oh,
I'd like Jen to join me up here if she would. As you can tell from the PowerPoint, should we ever get it up there, it's not exactly, the cover slide is not exactly my style, but I'm told it looks like parks.
that looks like parks.
This will take just a second.
So prepping for this, we've got a couple of, as you know, we underwent a reorganization in overall city management over the last 2 years, and we are going to have for you to consider today an ordinance implementing that reorganization in our city code. Council passed a resolution a year and a half ago, I guess it was, as to the plan for moving to the deputy city supervisor concept, taking some previous department heads and identifying them as managers. So you'd have the city supervisor, then you'd have 3 deputy city supervisors who would manage community planning and design, recreation, culture, and employee services and public works services. City supervisor would manage those 3 divisions oversight, and then would have active one-on-one management with public safety, police, fire, finance, legal, and information systems. So as part of that, as you also know, our longtime Parks and Rec Director Dwight Curtis took early retirement a couple of months ago, which provided us an opportunity to begin some of the restructuring in the recreation, culture, and employee services. So that will also be added to that ordinance when we bring that with you, or to you. This proposal, as you've read in your packet, has more to do with the shortfall in staffing that we've been experiencing in the Parks Department specifically. And we'll go through it in more detail, but essentially, we've had real trouble the last couple of years in hiring seasonal and part-time help in the summer. It isn't just because of COVID. You'll see a statistic up here that shows that it's been about a 5-year history of us budgeting what the time we need to do these different jobs, but we can't get people to fill those. So we end up with less manpower. So what happens is priorities fall off. Jen will go through what some of that happens. In looking at it, we were approached, not too long ago, with a proposal to perhaps convert some of that funding from seasonal to full-time positions, because it is easier to fill full-time positions. Now, full-time positions cost more per hour than part-time and seasonal, because you have benefits, you've got Percy, all of those sorts of things. But the numbers in this case make sense. We went through an analysis as to how much our parks properties have expanded over a period of time, how much our personnel have expanded to meet those needs, what's being done, what isn't being done, and is there sufficient work to be done year-round that full-time people, of course, you don't lay them off in the winter, so you need to make sure you have sufficient things for them to do. So now that I've given away all the punchlines,
We can just show the pretty pictures now.
yes,
and-
let's go.
It does
we
look
go.
like a park.
It felt very
It does look like a
park-like.
park, doesn't it?
You're right, it doesn't look like something Gary
It
created.
doesn't. So this is the reorganized organizational chart. And as you can see, there is no Parks and Rec Director anymore. We've split that up into Parks and Facilities Manager, who would be responsible for all city facilities other than Public Works facilities, or excuse me, public utility facilities, and all parks facilities. Then you have a Recreation Manager in that position, Greg Morrison fills that position, Dave Schott fills the Parks and Facilities Manager position. The Recreation Manager is responsible for recreation specifically. So the two very different duties that were managed by the Parks and Recreation Director will now be managed by the Deputy City Supervisor for oversight, keeping those people who know a lot about what they do and not micromanaging them.
Can I ask you something really quick on that?
Sure.
How is the commission then? Is that also going to change?
The commission will be staffed by both the Recreation Manager and Parks
But
and
it'll still be a
Facilities.
Parks and Rec commission, it's not,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
And the idea is to make sure that the commission weighs in as much on programming as they do on new parks and, those kind of fun things. So we're hoping to get a little better bonding between the commission and making their recommendations to council. And we get to the community events. Of course, Amanda Argone is the community events manager. Keeping with that trend, we also have, help me out, Megan Cherry as our arts program manager. Is Megan here?
Yeah, she is.
Thanks for
Yep.
embarrassing you. My mind only works so fast. I saw that HR director lurking on the side, and
There's got to be a better way to represent that.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
still
we
working
can-
on that.
So, and as the council knows, about a little over a month ago, Jen was appointed permanent HR director, or that regular position as part of her duties. So, that's what it will look like. We see, I think, a lot more efficiencies with this model.
Isn't the blue box and the yellow box, aren't those the same?
Yeah.
They are, I just don't want human resources to not look represented. So I need a better box or asterisk or something there.
That's one of the things that as we're changing the ordinance, in fact, Mia and I met this morning to talk about it. We don't want that HR director / HR manager position to be just in the deputy city supervisor's box, because should that change at some point, and it'd be a budgetary change as well, we want to make sure that that isn't lost, because the HR director or manager position is very important to our organization.
Can I just ask a question? Why does it say acting when I think we all,
I should have taken that off.
okay, I
My
just sat there and thought,
apologies.
you know.
Yeah, I should have
it was-
taken the
you're
acting
no longer
Pfiffner
acting
off,
and
yeah.
you're permanent and it's still up
Yes.
there, so
Yes.
I'm
You
glad
know-
it was your mistake and not somebody else's.
Even if you just remove acting Piffner, that's a little easier
It
to
could be, yeah,
understand in
that's
general,
my-
because
my
then
mistake there.
it doesn't become a,
Right.
you know, other duties as assigned with the deputy city supervisor.
Yes, this very colorful depiction. Let's go to the next
That's how I
slide.
coordinate my calendar. It's how I keep everybody straight.
Okay, so essentially, if you look at what is budgeted now, and the budget doesn't always look like the actual, because when the budget is submitted, it has the permanent positions, and it also has the part-time and seasonal positions, which are determined by the facilities and parks folks as to, this is what we need to do. So as you can see, a fairly large seasonal budget, $186,680. When in actuality, you can look down there, instead of 4 parks maintenance people, we have 3 now, and 1 is on National Guard duty administering COVID vaccines. So we hope to have him back fairly soon. The Moscow School District Playfield Parks maintenance position, which is, the school district pays a certain amount of money toward that position, and so does the city, to have an FTE on site or providing services. Doesn't mean it's one person 8 hours a day, it's a combination to provide coverage. And that FTE moved on in June of last year. So,
I'm sorry, that's another mistake on my part. That's June of this year. She
21, sorry.
just resigned.
okay,
Okay,
Yes.
that is a long time, I was just.
We
Yeah.
would have filled that by then. I apologize.
okay. So essentially, with what we see up here, the seasonal actual estimate, you want to talk about that, Jen?
Yeah, so that's the amount of dollars that we plan to spend, that we are on track to spend. Of that 186,000, that's all we'll be able to spend with the seasonal hires that we've had in to this point. We do anticipate about a $99,000 non-expense for seasonal labor, simply because we can't find the people.
Okay, next slide. So I'll let you talk about this.
Yeah, so as we look at both our full-time staff being considerably short this year, as well as our seasonals not coming into the level that we need them to, so that full-time staff can do what they need to do, we have our full-time staff moving into taking care of a lot of the seasonal duties, a lot of mowing and trimming. We've moved to, specifically on our fields, overseeding as a way to combat pesticide use. We've gone to an every other year for pesticide or herbicide use. So we're doing a lot more mowing than we have in the past. Rounds for litter, trash, restroom, those types of things. These are under those core services. These are the things that our full-time staff is making sure happens. Ball fields is a big item. We just had a tournament this last weekend. And then farmer's market, of course, and then general equipment maintenance to make sure that mowing and trimming can continue and those other types of things can happen. Secondary to that, and these are the items that they will get to as they can, and that's irrigation. We do have some parks that are being irrigated less frequently, just simply because we don't have enough people to get around and take care of it. Turf care for chemicals. We haven't done some of the pesticide spraying that we would usually do. Tree care is another item. Unfortunately, you'll see a lot of suckers growing out of trees right now. The parks staff they're mortified at it, frankly. But that's where we're at with tree care. And then shrub bed maintenance, same type of thing. We also have a lot of areas with the shrub beds where we don't have bark that we would have, or the bark mulch that we would have applied. So those are the things that they are focusing on as best they can, as they can. A lot of the things that we have going on, it's okay for a year. It would be fine for these things to lag for a year. Once they lag for 2 years, coming back means even more pesticides than the every other year before. It means those trees are going to be in worse shape than they were before. So it's something that we can manage through, but we don't want it to become the new norm, because we have a stellar quality of parks that our staff has provided for years and years, and they'd like to maintain that. And so just a little tough with the National Guard and ball fields person moving on, and then that seasonal issue that we're having.
Can I ask you a question? Was that date for National Guard through, it said August 2020? Is that a mistake?
End of August 21. I don't know why my head was in 2020 for some reason.
Both of those were like
Both
supposed to
of
be
them this
2020.
summer, yes.
was a
We'll
lost
we'll have that person. Yeah, I'm trying to bring it back in several ways, unfortunately.
Have we thought about maybe contracting with a local provider?
We are looking at that for several properties to help pick
Yeah.
up the slack.
Okay.
A lot of people in town are having a hard time finding landscape. Companies are having a hard time finding people as well. So unfortunately, it's not unique to the city. But yes, absolutely, we are looking at that.
Okay.
So those tertiary things are things that at this point we are not getting to. There are no safety or hazard concerns there. We are making sure we're covering basis on all of those, and I think about that specifically with
Janitorial.
playground maintenance.
How about janitorial?
What does that
Janitorial. So we're getting litter, trash, and restrooms. Absolutely, everything's getting picked up. Deep dive janitorial type stuff is as it needs, not on a regular basis. Playground maintenance, everything's bolts are tightened, playgrounds are safe, all that fun stuff. But going in and replacing bark or some of those types of things, it's just not happening at this time. A few other things there. Swimming pool maintenance, we're up and running. Everything's all good. Things are being managed. They're just not being addressed as proactively as staff likes to. So that's the overview with those items there. Luckily, we are not installing a playground this year. Thank goodness. That worked out really well. So we have been able to manage through quite a few of those things.
So I'm gonna guess that coming up very soon is going to be, these are all really summer, spring, and early fall intense type things. So you're gonna show us what we're gonna do during the winter?
I will give you an overview of what we're going to do in the winter. Yes. So the idea being, so this is what we did with an initial adjustment. It's like, God, we're really just not getting seasonal in. This is very odd. We know the landscape companies are having the same problem. We said, okay, let's look at what we're paying. And we did make an adjustment. We said, okay, we're going to hire fewer seasonal people this year, keep it within that budget appropriation, but we're going to go to $13 an hour if they don't have that pesticide license. And if they do have that license, we'll go $13.50. Made that adjustment, still weren't able to get any seasonal employees in. The piece that's been really exciting is that over the last few years, we shifted to a seasonals kinds and levels chart. So we made sure that all our seasonals fit within the kinds and levels. We've got internal equity. We're able to compare to market as best we can. Those part-time positions with Washington minimum wage changing are always difficult, or at least have been very difficult in the last few years. So we continue to work through that. But we had the information to go back and look at, okay, how many bodies did we have versus how many dollars? And that was when we could really pinpoint and say, wait a minute, we've been looking, we thought we had this covered with seasonal help, but we're not actually getting those bodies in. That's not happening. So that's why we're feeling this pressure on the full-time side, because it's starting to snowball. So it was good to have that information to look back to. David Schott also has an excellent process in place for looking at, when we look at all these services, he knows the number of hours that go to each one of those things for each one of the facilities that we look at. So it's very simple to say it's going to take this many hours, regardless of who does it, to mow and trim all of our properties.
So
We've got great historical data on that as well.
So I have one question, and that is that do we think that if we take those $13.50 an hour jobs or $13 an hour jobs, that we will in fact be able to find enough people then? I mean, it seems to me that no matter what we're doing right now, everybody seems short-staffed. And maybe making it full-time makes it more attractive, but do we have any sense in terms of if you add this to full-time, it will minimize or alleviate the problems that we're having?
We believe it will alleviate.
Great.
Yes, that's the punchline.
Yeah, that's the punchline we're looking for.
Yes. So we also wanted to take a look at what's our growth in our parks properties and our service hours. And this is something that's, we like to look at for all of our departments as to what they need to do, how that's changed over the years. And with this, all of a sudden we can't get enough seasonal people. It really kicked off a deeper dive into this. So Dave was able to go back and look at, okay, it's great. In 2014 to 2020, I believe it was 50 to about 104 properties, which is interesting, but it's a bus shelter. You need a trash pickup and a hose down versus East City Park, which very different type of property. So that count isn't exactly helpful. Service hours gets us a much better idea of what it takes to maintain all the properties, big, little, and in between. So we're looking at service hours here. In 2014 to 2020, there was a 38% increase in the service hours required to maintain properties, which we've been trying to address with our seasonals, of course. And we did add one FTE in 2018. So that helped us bridge that gap to where we're at now. This is that review of the seasonal budget. So looking back to fiscal year 15 through fiscal year 21, this is just what's budgeted and where we're at. And that's adjusted since we've had another seasonal or two let go. We're still back at that $87,000. So back in 15, we were spending about 87% of our seasonal budget, which is good. That's not a bad place to be. We're down in the 60s, and we're getting close to the low 60s in this current year. So the amount of money we're putting towards it isn't actually getting us the service we need to get the job done. So that's good news on one hand, although it's bad news on another.
So does that 62% actually include the increased salary that we're giving
Yes,
people?
yeah. Because we didn't change, we had fewer people that we were planning on hiring. We were just going to give the people we did get in more money. And so that total amount didn't change.
We still got
Still not.
62%.
Yeah, we are our 1350 with our pesticide license. Our local landscaping companies are paying anywhere from 14 to 17. So we're just not in that hang. We're close. We're close though. So some of the conclusions we looked at is we've got hours to service all of our parks properties, and we did take out all of the city hall, the man building that falls under facilities. We looked at just parks related properties. We have had a full-time staffing hour increase of 25% with that FTE that we added in 2018, but we're estimating our seasonal hours have decreased by about 21%, which means we don't have enough parks crew members to take care of the parks facilities as they sit right now.
And what is a typical time frame when it was seasonal? I mean, is it like March through October?
We did a combination of 5 months and 8 months. The season itself can be up to 8 months. We found that we could do 2 for 4 months. For some reason, that fit better with people's schedules.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so once we had some of that flexibility, that did help a little bit. So anywhere within
Okay,
there, we're
thanks.
flexible with that. Yeah, we'd rather have even if it's somebody coming back, especially they've already been trained, they know what to do. Come in for 4 months, absolutely.
But this is, I mean, that's kind of like the lifeguards.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
No matter what we do, we need lifeguards in the
Yes.
summer for 4 months.
yes, yep. So the proposal is to shift from relying on that seasonal staff, move to adding that full-time staff, really to meet those property service demands. This proposal includes 2 additional full-time parks maintenance workers, but we would reduce the number of seasonal hours budgeted. Estimated fiscal impact would be about a $98,000 increase for the parks full-time line item, and then a $94,000 savings in the part-time wages for parks. And then the shift would allow, we'd have the staffing level we need to meet the needs of the existing park facilities in Moscow. Some of the things that would happen in the off-season that are important is really proactive maintenance. Windstorms that we see in the spring. We haven't been able to take care of the trimming and pruning that needs to happen late fall and winter time for those trees to not have as much damage when we have a windstorm. Looking
Or
at
snowstorm like we had this year.
or snow, that ice or something like
Yeah.
that. So with tree health, overall community forest health would be greatly improved. Then also looking at snow removal, being able to staff that a little bit more effectively, potentially looking at crossover with streets to see if there's any assistance in reducing their seasonal hours needed for plowing. Looking at turf maintenance in the off-season, if there's, especially late fall, early spring, other ways to avoid pesticides, if there's more hand weeding, those types of things. That's a very time-intensive task at this point, and it's not something we can add to the list when we're as short as we are at this point. So looking at those different combination of factors, really providing more proactive so we're not cleaning stuff up, so we're not fixing things, more planning ahead as well.
Yeah, the off-season is also a great time for these, where the bulk of your work is seasonal, that you can get your training and professional development and those sorts of things. So, and the time frame is not as long as you would think, so it's
Well, that's
not
why I
from
asked, 'cause I know
the
it's
end of our,
short.
you bet, so.
Yeah, a lot of what the staff does as well is all of our benches, picnic tables, they bring them into the shop, refinish, get those ready for the next season. So a lot of rehab and getting things put back together so it's ready to go for the next season.
Especially if you have 8-month jobs. I mean, this makes it much more appealing if someone has a 12-month job and benefits.
And
Right.
the training that we'll get, the training we'll avoid doing again and again in the summer will be tremendous. That capacity is going to be huge.
So hiring part-time, you think is going to be harder than hiring a couple full-times, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And bringing them in at 100% of market, is that a problem with raises and
That's the
whatnot?
way that is the
Yeah.
way that we budget. So you don't know who you're going to get. You may get somebody coming in with 10 years like experience who can step right into the role with a full family. Typically, you're going to get someone who is not fully experienced, so they'll be hired less than market. And some people have dependents, some people don't, so you'd never know what you're gonna
Okay,
get.
so that's worst case
Conservative,
scenario.
yeah.
Full
I get it.
family, yep.
Right on.
Actually, part of what you were saying earlier was that idea of, having people, some places, landscape people are paying $14 to $17 an hour, but if our starting is 13, and is that really comparable?
For the seasonal,
Yeah.
for part-time seasonal, we felt like it's okay, it's not great. For full-time, the starting wage is, I think 1860 is the 100% of market.
Okay.
So
there you go.
we
I
will
missed
be
that.
in that 17. We're more comparable in the market range when it comes to full-time employees, absolutely.
That's helpful.
I'm always well, not always, but almost always in support of full-time when we can. I think that's important. I think it strengthens our community. And I think it will help our parks. I'm absolutely in favor of this.
Gina?
Yeah, me too.
You do-
I-
Do we
And
need
I
to
do have
put-
one more part of the proposal, if I may.
Yeah.
Since we're seeing such a significant savings in our part-time budget this year, looking for the committee to recommend approval of hiring those 2 parks maintenance workers effective immediately. Of course, it would
Yeah.
take us a bit of time to get them hired and through the door. The estimated cost, again, at that 100% of market, and if their full family benefits, would be $24,500 for the remainder of this fiscal year.
But it's also kind of a look-see. If you actually took some of your people who are part-time seasonal and you found somebody who was really good, you could, it's kind of a look-see
We've done the
process.
analysis, and we will end up breaking even about, in this fiscal year, and the proposal going into next fiscal year is just a balance between you're taking that seasonal money and shifting it over to
Right.
full-time, so,
Right.
the actual cost of the services is not adjusting very much. So we're confident that, we'll be able to do it this year and into the future at just about the same amount of money.
No, I think it's smart, and I agree with moving that, starting it immediately. I mean, we all know things have just changed. I paid for college working for parks, but it was only for 2.5 months. And boy, those seasons are too long now to do that, so I think this is a good move, and I think it'll help us long-term.
Math is my strong suit, but I want you to walk me through the difference in the numbers here all of a sudden. So you got 98,342 and 94,454. So delta there is 5 roughly.
Yep.
Yes.
Why did it turn to 25,000 up on the top? Help me understand
The
that.
25,000 up top would be what it would cost if we hired 2 employees for 3 months
Today.
at the 100% of market and 40% benefits. That's
Right now.
That's what's
As-
remaining
the
in
year.
fiscal '21.
Okay, and we
Yeah.
have that in the budget because we haven't been
Yes.
able to
because we haven't
hire
Save.
anybody. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. I
Yeah.
needed to,
There's a lot of numbers up there.
And we've also brought in, Sarah has been part of this, and she's run the analysis as well,
Yes.
and agrees with the numbers as well.
Does this go on the consent agreement? Can we do it through consent, or should we have it go
Certainly
to?
can.
I'd say go, I'd say go for consent.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yes,
Okay, perfect,
If someone has a question, they can always pull it off, but
yeah.
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 Seems like it, you did a great job on this, and
Thank
thank you for
you.
the
Thank you.
presentation.
Yeah.
So, any reports from staff that we need to hear from?
No,
great.
Adjourn
Yeah, why
Adjourn.
not?
or adjourn?
thank you.
Thank you.
you.